Everybody ready to go? I'm gaining weight. Does that count? I'm losing weight. That's losing my mind. The more memory you lose, I guess you lose weight. The better things get. I forget. Let's go ahead and we'll call the planning commission meeting to order. 2:01 on the, what is it, 15th? May 15th. Could we do a roll call? Here. 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 Okay. All right. First thing on the agenda is we have the approval of the April 17 meeting minutes, which are attached.
I move to approve the April 17th meeting.
Second. Any discussion needed on those? All right. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Next is commission business, which looks like we have none. And so the next thing is jumping into a public hearing. Partition 2024-02-LP Juniper Road. With that, I'll hand it over to Alan.
Yeah.
Take the staff report.
All right. Good afternoon,
Get
everyone.
introduced to these guys.
I was just going to do that. Yeah. Before we get started.
Thanks.
Before we get started, I just wanted to introduce the commission to two planning consultants that the city's hired to help us deal with some of the land use applications that are coming in. This is Grace Coffey and Larissa Gladding, and they're from Winterbrook Planning. And they're actually Larissa will be presenting the land use application today.
Nice to meet you. Well, if we are ready to go, then we can pull up our slides.
Oh, you got it?
All right, so this is proposal 2024-02-LP. Thank you. And this is for the Juniper partition. The applicant is Ryan Pence Construction, who is in the seating today. The property is located at 450 Southwest Juniper Road, and the proposal is for a 2-lot partition of a 0.23 acre property. And we received comments from city engineer, public works, and the fire marshal. Next slide, please. So this is a 2022 aerial image of the site. Please note that in 2023 in the summer, all of the structures were demolished, so there are no longer any structures on the site. The property faces Southwest Juniper Road, a local roadway. Next slide, please. And Juniper Road intersects with Southwest Laurel to the northeast and then dead ends. And this property is on the boundary lines, or sorry, city services for water and sewer face the boundary lines for the property, and it is flat with no slope. Next slide, please. So the zoning for this property is R2 medium residential, medium density, and that is also the same for the comprehensive plan designation, and all of the surrounding uses are residential. Next slide. So what we see here, the bold black line is the existing property line, and then in the center is a red dashed line, that's the proposed partition line. And we'll be referring to the 2 resulting lots as tract 1 and tract 2. Next slide, please. So this is a partition for future residential development. The applicant has indicated the intention to build single family or duplexes on each lot. The existing lot is approximately 10,000 square feet, and the resulting lots will be about 5,000 square feet for each. And that is consistent with the minimum lot size standards in the R2 zone. Next slide, please. In regards to utilities, the agencies that commented had no concerns about utilities. The applicant has indicated that there are existing city sewer services connected to both proposed lots and city water services connected to proposed lot tract 2 on the south. So a new water connection will be required for proposed tract 1. And the final plat will require a utility, or that utilities and other necessary improvements be installed underground, a stormwater drainage plan, and a 10-foot public utility easement. Next slide. There are no sidewalks on this development side of Juniper Road. There are sidewalks along the full other side. This image is showing that the other local roadways nearby all have a similar pattern of one side of sidewalks, the other side without. Typically, a partition would require sidewalk improvements to be made. The applicant met with city staff, the city engineer, and public works at their pre-application conference, and all have agreed that because Juniper is a dead end, it has some low traffic, and because none of the other properties on that side or on that side have sidewalks, that we are not recommending sidewalk improvements at this time. Next slide, please. Good. In terms of vehicular access, proposed tract 1, highlighted in blue, has an existing concrete drive. The fire marshal conducted a site visit and found that the turn radius of the existing drive will require some minor turn radius improvements to meet fire code. Next slide, please. And this is a drawing from the application indicating some examples of potential future development. The second proposed lot, proposed tract 2, does not currently have vehicular access, and that will be required. And so luckily the applicant has indicated that as an intention, staff finds that there's sufficient space for a new access to be proposed for that tract. Next step. So given that we have found that the proposal can meet all of the requirements for the partition application, we recommend approval of 2024-02-LP subject to conditions of approval, which are listed in the staff report. That's on page 14, and I'll summarize them next. Number 1 being that both lots must be approximately or at least 5,000 square feet. Number 2, that utilities and other necessary improvements must be completed, bonded, or assured, and must be installed underground. 3, requiring a stormwater drainage plan. 4, sidewalk improvements are not required. Next, 5, a 10-foot public utility easement is required. And a turn radius improvements to the existing concrete drive accessing tract 1 to fire department standards, and then a new driveway access installed to proposed tract 2. And then 8 and 9 are the typical procedural conditions for a partition application. So platting and legal description details must be provided, no building permits before final plat approval. And then that is valid for 2 years, resulting in a final plat approval. Next. And that concludes the staff report. Now we've got public comments and then any of your questions. And then we can motion to approve with changes, or deny with findings.
Any questions at this time? I have one on the driveway, the existing driveway radius.
Mm-hmm.
Who has the ultimate rule on that? Is it the city or the fire marshal?
Ultimately, I believe it's the fire marshal. Yeah. And they have their own standards. And so part of the full condition that we have here is that prior to final plat approval, that the applicant would need to get sign off from the fire department, and then that would need to be shown on the final plat before it could be approved.
Should we update our city driveway specs to meet fire code?
I think we make a reference to the fire code, and that's easier than updating our code every time their code changes. But was going to open up and look and see exactly what it says.
I'm just struggling why she's even weighing in on it. I mean, they're not going to pull a fire truck in there. And if it's meeting the city minimum width, maximum width, wings, ADA, and all that, I kind of want to just tell them to stay in their lane, but I don't think I have the authority to do that.
I'm gonna take a note. I'm gonna look into that. I'll get back to you. Ben.
Into the property down there anyway.
None of them will be.
Right.
And I don't think, I mean,
That one.
it's not necessarily pertinent to this, but if there's a perfectly good driveway and we're making them tear it up, it kind of is, or make improvements to it. So maybe when we invite the applicant up, we can have them speak to it.
Yeah.
That was my only thought. Any other questions? Okay, let's do this. We will go into the public hearing. I'm going to read a statement about evidence, and then I'll invite the applicant to come on up. So I'm going to close the planning commission meeting, open the public hearing. Do any members of the commission wish to abstain or declare ex parte contact?
I've talked to them and I'm legal.
Okay. Noted. The statement about evidence presented at the hearing. An issue which may be the basis for appeal to the city council must be raised prior to the close of the record at the final evidentiary hearing on the specific application. Such issues shall be raised with sufficient specificity as to afford the city council and the parties adequate opportunity to respond to each issue. Failure of an issue to be raised at the hearing in person or by letter, or failure to provide sufficient specificity to afford the city council and the parties adequate opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the city council. So with that, Mr. Pence, if you'd like to come up and give your 2 cents, introduce yourself, and just to make it official. Yeah, probably, because there might be 1 or 2 people listening.
I'm Ryan Pence. It's our lot. We bought it. It's pretty code conforming. There's a couple of those things on the list of things we needed to do. So the secondary approach is already put in. We went through the public works, got that all dialed in and poured. Water meters already been put in by public works. We have both sewers in, so both meters. It was an existing double lot back in the 60s, and then they combined it into 1 lot, and now all we're doing is putting it back to 2 lots again. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the storm plan for the rain drains into the bioswale is what is pretty simple with the engineer. I think that's what he wanted at the pre-meeting. PG's already done. They're already across the road because it was already underground. It's like I said, it's about as slam dunk a division as you get, I think. So
With the driveway that the fire marshal has a problem with, what, do you have any more?
no, that was done on the when this was all done 20 years ago when they redid Lakeshore, when it used to be gravel, and they put in all the bioswales and all the paving. I grew up down there, so I know. That was put in by the contractor who did it back in the day. So it's the same driveway as everybody else down there. And it's 12, I think it's like 12 and a half or 13 feet wide. It's not an ADA because there's no sidewalk on that side. So it's, like I said, it's pretty much what everybody has down there. There's no difference from that driveway to the neighbors to anybody down there. So I don't know what's Sarah. I think that's
yeah.
I just talked to her today. She didn't say anything about it. So
Interesting. Okay.
anyways.
Perfect.
And it'd be interesting to see what their drawing of what they want for that criteria, what the radius or the wing they want for a narrow driveway, because I've never seen a design at all.
Sure.
So, I mean, it'd be something to figure out now for later for these other stuff going around town.
So moving forward, if the city put that in 20 years ago, or the city's contractor did,
Yeah.
how do we rectify that? And again, who rules this?
Yeah, I have a note to look into that.
Okay.
So I'm gonna look into this. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
So then any future correspondence will just go through planning and not public works?
Well, I mean, I'll just see what the code says, see what we can recommend for an amendment to that, or yeah, how to rectify it. I'm not sure yet. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll take a look at it.
Perfect.
But
Any-
for today, if you want to recommend that condition be struck, you can
Okay.
do that.
My guess is that the standards must have been upgraded or changed since that was put in. And so I think the language around that requirement right now says to meet standards, but it also says to essentially get approval from the fire marshal beforehand. So it could be possible to reword it and just confirm that the fire marshal is okay with it if you've already been talking with her. Just because we now have on the record her statement that that wasn't concerned, so it might be nice to just acknowledge it as a condition.
All right. Any other questions? All right, thanks, Ryan. Any other people in the audience want to come and speak on behalf of the application? Does anybody want to speak on the applicant against it? Or in neutrality? For or against? Okay. It doesn't look like we have any other audience members that want to speak on it. So we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and we will go back into the planning commission meeting. If we could bring up the three options of approve with conditions, but change some of them and then deny. And this is our decision. It doesn't go to the city council, right? That's okay.
So let's formulate an intelligent response instead of jumbling around all day.
So anybody that wants to make a motion that falls into one of those three buckets, please do.
I move to approve with conditions. But how would I word that in regards to looking at that?
You would call out the condition that you want to change and maybe propose a new wording for it, or
I kind of agree with you, but
The only question I would have is specifically a liability question, and that is if we knowingly strike something that we believe to be erroneous to this, does that then in some type of circumstance or event make this board liable for knowingly saying not to do something that a code or inspection has said from 20 years ago?
We met with the fire, not about this specifically, but about some issues earlier. If it's in the fire code, that kind of overrules the city's code. The fire code, is the fire code regardless. It's state statute, right?
okay.
If they can choose to do an alternate agreement. There's avenues for them if they don't want to change the route of the driveway for the fire trucks. And I believe, we were just talking hypotheticals that they would have to then do sprinklers is generally what they have to do. It would probably be cheaper to amend the driveway than install sprinklers. I don't know that, but you can leave it that they could have an agreement, to comply with fire code as per the fire marshal or something along those lines, rather than specifically for them to.
I'm going to go like this. I understand where you're
Yeah.
at. I'm going to say we're going to move to approve with conditions as stated and leave it there.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I think we just had the discussion.
I have a question regarding that.
Yeah.
And I hate to keep just kicking this dead horse, but what happens if it's a no garage house?
If it's a no garage house.
What happens if it doesn't have, what happens if it's like a cottage cluster and it has, or something that doesn't require a driveway?
What does the fire code say? I mean,
Well,
that's what if the fire marshal is saying this is what the fire code says, that's what they need to follow is fire code, because that's state, that's not local. I don't know what the fire code says about garages or driveways or cottage clusters.
So do we require off-street parking for every residential building?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, so that's the one only hang up then. The last thing is if we make them change it and the city willingly did this improvement 20 years ago, are we gonna bind the city to improve the rest of these driveways that don't meet the radius?
I mean, this is like where we just changed our TSP and we have upgraded some of the streets to different street widths or different requirements on the streets. We're not going to go back and change them until there's development there.
So if somebody adds on a garage or a bedroom, is that a trigger to fix the approach then? Are we gonna trigger the fire marshal?
The development needs to be $15,000. If they're pulling a permit for $15,000 or more, this is also a question for Brian. I don't know if it's any type of permit that's more than $15,000, but yeah, that does trigger.
So I mean, they could be putting solar on their house and it would trigger that.
Again, I'm not sure. I'd have to talk to Brian if it's any permit that's 15,000 or more. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But ultimately, it sounds like the question is if the fire marshal changes their code, what's the city's responsibility with that? Is that right?
And this is not, the fire marshal code is not Estacada Fire. This is state fire code.
And this can happen.
Yes, they change it. I think he said usually every 3 years.
I think from a legal aspect, we're in the right mode right now. We just go with the conditions as they are, because if we start messing around with it, we can just open up a can of worms. And
Well, and I would be concerned for the applicant if the fire marshal says this is something you have to do and they don't do it, that could potentially impact their insurance rates, because now that they've had something that we knowingly allowed that the fire marshal said was not compatible with their equipment.
And I believe we agree with that. Again, that should be at this point,
Mhm.
the council has done their parts. And so now it's the landowner and the fire departments
Yes.
debates with each other to determine what that works with. And I feel good from the liability side. But Ben, Chair Wheeler's point though, is with merit, and it would seem inefficient for us to have our own specific language that is in direct contrast with fire code. And one would want to say that our language should look something similar to we mirror fire code. And so whatever the fire code is, as that fluctuates to and fro, we just have an arrow that points to the fire code.
We do.
And that's how it's working right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
well then this is a moot point then.
Yeah.
But then why was that a recommendation if that's if the arrow points in that direction, then that's not even a factor in this conversation.
Well, it's just in the code that the applicant needs to satisfy, or they need to get fire approval for their design. So that's kind of that is the
Okay.
arrow basically.
That's
Yeah,
simple
yeah,
enough.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. No further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, so it's approved. You'll deal with Alan and Public Works for the rest of the stuff.
That's right.
Alan and Public Works, not Alan in Public Works, Alan in Planning and Public Works. What else we got?
That's it.
That's it? Do we have a meeting next month?
That's it.
Oh,
Let's come up with something.
public comment. We do, number 6 here.
I'm so sorry.
If there's anybody that has
Got it.
any public comment and would like to come before the mic, we don't have public comment typically. Do I need to read any more statement about evidence? Okay. Do we have a time limit? Or do we?
There's 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay.
It
If you
won't
could
take
introduce
that long.
yourself and let us know who you are and why you're here, and we'll listen for 3 minutes.
Okay, it won't take that long. My name is Tasha Terrell. I actually serve on the Public Traffic Safety Committee, and I'm here today on behalf of our committee. We are just looking at other committees to work with in the future. So I'm here today to just kind of put that out there, and that's why I'm here.
Okay.
So I just want to put that out there. And
Can you give us a Reader's Digest version for those of us that don't really know what exactly your committee does in depth?
I'm pretty new to the committee, so bear with me. We do a lot of public concerns around the town for safety, like if there's any signs down, any like ADA things that we need to work on, any safety concerns that involves the traffic. We work with the Clackamas County Sheriff, and they come into our meetings every month and go over their statistics or any public concerns that we need to be aware of. So we deal a lot with that. And we try to bring up those concerns and see how we can resolve any issues in our community.
Excellent.
And any public concerns that people have that they submit to us, we try to resolve those as well. That's in a nutshell.
Excellent. Any questions?
I just feel like we should send you up to Lawrence Road.
Yeah.
Well, if you have anything, let us know.
They're very familiar. with
They're really
Lawrence Road.
familiar with that now.
I have a quick comment. The school district would like to thank you and your committee for your hard work ensuring that we have state-of-the-art updated crosswalk
Yes,
markings with the new age lighting. That's already making a difference. And
you're
that's,
welcome. It's
just know that your committee is already making our community better.
awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, is there any further public comment? Anybody online?
I got one thing to say.
You're not part of the public, you're part of the.
I know. I am now. Alan sent a memo updating us on the December.
Yeah.
I want to thank him, because this is what I've been asking for. I'd like to see what happens after the fact too. If, I know you guys are busy, don't get me wrong, but it'd be nice to know what we do, was happening. And that was great.
All right,
Thanks, Don.
thank you.
I want to second that.
All right, any other commission comments now? Okay, let's adjourn the meeting at,
Before we do that, for your next meeting, City Hall is closed that day, so we need to reschedule. Would you all want to move it to the Thursday after the 19th? So it'd be the 20th, or we could move it to the next week.
this is June, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything on the calendar yet or on the yes, we got stuff.
There would be, yeah.
The political sign
Yes, the
ordinance.
Sign, yeah, the sign ordinance.
So Thursday, June 20th is the proposal.
Yes.
Okay.
Same time, 2 p.m.
That works for me.
Should be
So
okay.
what day did she just say?
Thursday, June 20th.
Richard, is that okay with you? June 20th,
And that was at what time?
2 o'clock.
At this point, I don't see any problem.
Thursday, June 20th.
Oh, 20. No, at 9, then it's Sunday.
I can also get in touch with Tara and ask her.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
And then if you haven't already, some of you need to sign the Code of Conduct and Planning Commission handbook, and we need those today.
You good with that?
I'm good.
Okay, looks like we'll have a quorum, so let's go ahead and move it to Thursday, the 20th
Perfect. Thank you.
at 2. Okay, any further planning commission business? Okay, here we go. Adjourn.